Buying a stocks is a one thing, but buying home is a pretty big deal in India. But from numbers perspective, it's the biggest housing finance company.
And slowly and steadily it started to become a dominant force in this particular segment.
The biggest company in the world also sees the potential in
Potential
this
in this
particular
particular
market.
segment.
लोन देना बहुत आसान है, रिकवर करना बहुत हार्ड है.
So true.
So true. I have a 24,000 crore AUM, so I am the biggest one and I am the most efficient one. How much are you able to recover it out of this particular?
Yeah, that is
Right.
what I'm
So
saying.
that's the.
Fundamentally, there is nothing wrong in this company as of now.
Hi guys, welcome to the new podcast
Hello.
where we try to decode the different businesses listed on Indian stock exchanges and try to figure out that is there any investment opportunity or not. And but I think today, before coming to the stocks, we'll start with a which much bigger subject, which is home. So buying a stocks is a one thing, but buying home is a pretty big deal in India. Especially, it is not a financial decision; it's more like an emotional one, because and especially if it's your first home. So it's a dream actually for so many Indians, and related to that only we're going to discuss. And there's this company which helps people in fulfilling that dream, because the company we're going to talk is about Aadhar Housing Finance, and as the name suggests, it is into the housing finance company. But there are some things, so many things actually, which makes Aadhar a slightly different player than the other. Uh, but from numbers perspective, it's the biggest housing finance company
In the country.
in the country. Affordable housing finance company. Of course, biggest is HDFC. Everyone knows it. But in the affordable segment, so typically, affordable housing finance is something where very cheap houses, not cheap in terms of low ticket houses, are there. So these are buyers who are buying the house for the first time. So owning no house to buying a house. So for example, Aadhar Housing Finance has an average ticket size of around 10 to 15 lakh. So that's a very basic house. And these are not your houses in tier 1, tier 2 cities, because there you can't even buy a bathroom in that price. These are your villages, tier 3, tier 4 cities, and small rural areas somewhere where you can get a decent livable house in that price. And as I said, the buyers are the first time buyers. And Aadhar is actually a very situated, it's like a bridge between the people who want to buy their first house and the people who get their first house basically. So just from the numbers perspective, I think 20 it's present in 21 state. It has around 500 plus branches. And interestingly, this is the one point which haunts so many NBFCs, which is that the dependability on one particular states. So for Aadhar, it's a very good thing, because there is not even a single state who contribute more than 15% of their AUM. So diversification wise, it's pretty well covered, if that sense. And of course, it's an NBFC as the name. It's not a bank company, but the company has differentiated itself from giving loans to where the big companies, big banks has hesitated, which is the low income group and the economically weaker segment basically. As I said, these are the buyers who are buying for the first time. So coming from a rented house, that's also probably very small, and in terms of facilities is very minimal, to buying their first home. I mean, if we're talking about the person who doesn't have 15 lakh to buy a home, he has to depend on a loan for that. So it's a pretty vulnerable class of India, and including that into the financial system, it's actually a pretty big deal, because that's the aim of RBI also, to increase the financial inclusion. But I think before diving deep more into the Aadhar finance business, can you just give us a brief history about Aadhar and how it came into the existence?
Sure thing. So interestingly, this company started in 1990 with the name as Vyasya Housing Finance Company. And it was a very small player. And as you mentioned, since the start, it has been catering to the affordable housing segment only. And over the years, there has been change of ownerships. Like new owners have come and they have, ran the business for a certain years. Then again, there has been a change in ownership, and then it got merged with another housing finance company in 2017, and slowly and steadily it started to become a dominant force in this particular segment, the affordable housing finance segment. But the year 2018 was a breakthrough year for this company, because Blackstone, as we know, is one of the world's largest private equity firms, it acquired a majority stake. And by majority stake, I mean more than 75% of stake in this particular company. And they injected fresh capital in the company and, just completely changed this company upside down. Like,
I mean, biggest
yeah,
player coming in. I mean, it's big, one of the biggest in private equity, but it's the biggest in real estate private
real estate
equity.
private
So
equity.
that perspective also, it's a very big thing for
Yeah,
Aadhar.
and there are, again adjacencies considering वो real estate में है
Yeah.
and इन्होंने affordable housing में ही घुसे, so they could give them
Hmm.
that data
So
also कि
basically, the biggest company in the world also sees the potential in this
potential in this
particular
particular
market,
segment.
and that's why they, I think, enter into.
Yeah. So and with Blackstone coming in, so first earlier they were a small player. Now they have become the largest affordable housing finance company in the whole country. And as of now, I think their AUM is around 24,000 crores. So yeah,
Pretty big.
definitely I think Blackstone has brought in a big change in the company.
Hmm.
But if you could just tell us that what is the change, like what did Blackstone do in this particular company
Hmm.
which has made it such a big force in this particular
Yeah,
industry?
yeah, sure. So I think, as you mentioned, Blackstone acquiring this company basically was really a breakthrough for this company, and I think one segment that I already mentioned is that lending to unbanked areas. So where these big banks and even the big NBFCs, just leave the banks out of the picture. Even the NBFCs, where they were not focusing on this particular economically weaker segment or the low income group, basically, which didn't have. So these are the people basically which might not even have a credit history for that matter, because they are not allowed credit cards. If someone like a small vegetable vendor goes to bank to a credit card, there is no credit history for the bank to give him the credit card. So these are typically not only the first time home buyers but also first time credit takers. So that is also a very pretty kind of a risky segment. That's why these big companies stay away from it, because they see enough growth areas, enough credit growth in their existing segment. So but Aadhar did exactly those things, that taking the that part of the segment.
So
Uh,
basically, they tapped the
yeah.
segment where no one was,
Yeah,
trying to.
very little
Yeah.
competition. We can't say no one, because there are of course numerous housing finance companies also. So instead of solely relying on the conventional financial documents, they also use a hybrid underwriting model. So documentation, of course, it's is the primary thing you need for the loan. But apart from that, they went 1 mile extra. So if the borrower is a salaried employee, salaried borrower basically, so there is this thing called regional processing units. They have set up these particular units at very small areas, district for example, and there they evaluate, like in personal evaluate. So whenever, so for example, you are the guy processing the loans, approving the loans. So an application came to you on the screen of your laptop or something. You might not know certain thing about a borrower, but if you meet, let's say I am the borrower, and if you meet me personally, there are definitely a couple of more things you will get to know about me. So these are the things that they do for the salaried borrowers. So basic checks and balances are also there. And they also give loans to the self-employed borrower, because as we know, rural economy is pretty big unorganized economy. So there is no particular formal jobs or anything. Even jobs are there, they are on the contractual basis. So many of these people rely on the self employment, which is basically your chota mota shop ho gaya, whatever. So there also they do the underwriting on a branch level. So there again, the personal touch that I'm talking about, that also come into the picture, and their more tailored approach to the risk assessment is also there. And I think because of that also, the company has increased its total addressable market, because they are not catering to only one salaried or self-employed. They're open to all basically, and that has resulted into a higher total addressable market, and in the result has become a biggest housing financial affordable housing finance company. Secondly, their distribution model is also very interesting. So usually what happens is these companies solely rely on the in-house distribution. So सेल्स एजेंट जो होते हैं बेसिकली, तो वो आपके बैंक्स में आपकी एनबीएफसीज के लिए ये भी लाते हैं, बिजनेस भी लाते हैं, एंड दे ऑल्सो गेट सैलरी प्लस कमीशन बेस. सो दोज आर देयर एम्प्लॉय काइंड ऑफ थिंग. बट ऑल्सो देर आर थर्ड पार्टी डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर, जो सो XYZ is a third party distributor who distribute all kind of loan, not only Aadhar's loan. He might be giving you Aadhar's loan or any other Aptus Home Finance or anyone. So for Aadhar, their ratio of self employee loans sourced through by employee and loans sourced through by this third party agents is pretty balanced. 56% are employed and 45% is 44% is from the third party
But it's
vendors.
actually good, that majority of their loans are coming through their own
Yeah,
employees, so they have better control in
correct.
that particular account.
But that limits your reach, because if you have, let's say, no branch in XYZ district, then you can take a loan from that particular district, and
Agreed,
that's why
yeah.
the third party distributor comes in.
So I
That's why I
think
said
then that's wherein these people step
एग्जैक्टली
up.
एग्जैक्टली सो जहाँ पे आपकी प्रेजेंस ही नहीं है, तो वहाँ पे रादर देन सेटिंग अप योर ओन ब्रांच, सो एटलीस्ट टू टेस्ट द वाटर यू कैन ट्राई विद द थर्ड पार्टी डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर. इफ यू सी द डिमांड इज हाई enough, you can always go ahead and set up your branch. So that's a very balanced. That's why I said 55-45 is a very balanced, but because some companies it says 90-10 or 10-90 other way around. So that, I think, dependability on one particular sourcing method is something which is, I think, Aadhar has finally cracked through it. Hmm. And of course there is this tech part also, if you want
Yeah.
to highlight.
सो एज यू मेंशनड कि हाँ ऑलरेडी उनका इतना एफिशिएंसी तो वो लोग लेके आ गए,
Hmm.
बट देन अगर एक बड़ा प्लेयर आता है तो
Hmm.
जैसे आई थिंक वी मेंशनड कि भाई वो फ्रेश कैपिटल भी लेके आया था. एंड ऑब्वियसली अगर वो फ्रेश कैपिटल लाया है तो दे माइट हैव मेड सम अपग्रेड्स इन देयर एग्जिस्टिंग बैंकिंग और सॉल्यूशंस infrastructure as well, right?
Hmm.
So that has been another edge for the company. तो उसके वजह से दे आर एबल टू प्रोसेस लोन्स एट अ मच फास्टर पेस. एंड वो लोग ऐसे स्मार्टली भी, ऐसा नहीं फास्ट है तो मतलब जो आया सबको लोन्स
Hmm.
दे दिए, वो नहीं करते वो लोग. उसमें भी दे हैव देयर ओन पैरामीटर सेट कि हाँ ये है तो ही हम इनको लोन देंगे,
Hmm.
इसके बिना लोन नहीं देंगे.
Internals is
हाँ.
SOPs basically.
तो बेसिकली आई थिंक तो अभी उन्होंने क्या किया, आई थिंक 95% ऑफ देयर कलेक्शंस तो दे हैव ऑटोमेटेड क्लियरिंग हाउसेस. तो
Hmm.
उसके अंदर अभी ऐसा घर घर जाके उनका कोई बंदा जाके कैश लेके नहीं आएगा.
Hmm.
सो उसमें देर इज दिस कैश हैंडलिंग रिस्क, वो सब ऑटोमेट कर दिया उन्होंने पूरा सिस्टम.
Hmm.
सो दैट पर्टिकुलर थिंग इंक्रीजेज देयर कलेक्शन एफिशिएंसी ऑल्सो, और कैश हैंडलिंग रिस्क
Hmm.
एलिमिनेट हो जाता है. देन
Correct.
सेकेंडली दे हैव अ डिजिटल कलेक्शन सिस्टम ऑल्सो, विच मेक श्योर कि भाई देर certain जब इकोनॉमिकल अनसर्टेन टाइम्स होते हैं वेर इन इट
Hmm.
बिकम्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट फॉर दीज लो इनकम पीपल टू पे ऑफ देयर लोन्स. सो दे हैव क्रिएटेड अ 4 tier स्ट्रक्चर फॉर दिस ऑल्सो कि भाई हाँ, पहले ये एक लेवल पे चेक होगा, नहीं तो फिर
Hmm.
उसके ऊपर जाएंगे, ऐसे करके दे हैव एडेड दीज लेयर्स ऑफ सेफ्टी
Hmm.
ऑल्सो.
So that collection can be
हाँ,
improved.
कलेक्शन कैन बी इम्प्रूव्ड.
Hmm.
देन थर्ड इज आई थिंक उनका एक बहुत ही ऐसा इंटरेस्टिंग एक क्रेडिट रिस्क मॉडल है RAG के नाम से.
Hmm.
तो R इज बेसिकली रेड, A इज बेसिकली एम्बर एंड G इज ग्रीन. तो
Okay.
जो भी बोरोअर या पोटेंशियल बोरोअर आर रेड ब्लॉक के अंदर आता है, दे वुड नॉट गिव लोन टू हिम
Hmm.
बिकॉज दे आर कंसिडर्ड टू बी द
Is
रिस्कीस्ट अकॉर्डिंग टू आधार सिस्टम, जो उन्होंने
whatever
सिस्टम,
the numbers
हाँ,
or
जो
whatever
उन्होंने
the
मॉडल सेट किया है. सो दे
understood.
विल ओनली ट्राई एंड गिव लोन्स टू दोज पीपल जो एम्बर क्वाड्रेंट के अंदर आते हैं एंड जो ग्रीन के
Green.
अंदर
Okay.
आते हैं, बिकॉज वहाँ
Hmm.
पे फिर देर इज अ हायर चांस ऑफ रिकवरी एज वेल. सो
Hmm.
दैट इज वाई वहाँ पे वो सेव कर लेते हैं अपने
Very
आप को थोड़ा.
colorful risk management system.
या ये है मतलब दीज वर द कंपनी स्पेसिफिक
Hmm.
चेंजेस विच हैड हैपेंड और जो उन्होंने प्रोग्रेस किया.
Hmm.
बट देन एट द सेम टाइम सेक्टर लेवल पे भी दिस पर्टिकुलर सेक्टर इज एट अ,
Tailwinds having.
there are a lot of tailwinds basically in this sector.
Hmm.
And government भी if you see काफ़ी ऐसा affordable housing का पूरा वो लोग एक वेव लेके आ रहे हैं थ्रू स्कीम सच एस प्रधानमंत्री आवास योजना एंड
Hmm.
मेनी अदर इंसेंटिव्स. फिर
Hmm.
जो फ्रीबीज जो उनको विलेजर्स और इन
Hmm.
द tier 3 tier 4 cities जो भी incentives मिलते हैं,
Hmm.
that also helps them obviously to
Yeah.
build their home. तो इसके वजह से उनके कस्टमर बेस भी बढ़ता है.
Correct.
And it is expected that this particular sector itself grows at 20% plus annually.
And that's the reason Blackstone
हाँ,
entered. They're not gonna enter in a sector who's expected
they
to grow at
might
five
have
ten
seen
percent
some future in this
Yeah.
particular sector.
Hmm.
And again, same because of this, and already them having such a penetration in tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4 cities,
Hmm.
they can capitalize on this particular tailwind.
Hmm.
So, हाँ, I think these are the reasons. But ये सब तो ठीक है, but then what really matters is numbers. मतलब
Especially in a bank,
in a bank,
NBFCs, because
yes.
number tells you a
So
story, I think, more
yeah,
clearly than. But I think this one phrase I really like in banking terms. Loan देना बहुत आसान है, recover करना बहुत hard है.
so true.
So true. So it's not that I have a 24,000 crore AUM, so I am the biggest one and I am the most efficient one. How much are you able to able to recover it out of this particular. So coming to the number, I think it's a leader in the segment, as we have multiple time mentioned. But their AUM growth, even on this high base, is expected to be around 21% for the next 2 3 years. So again,
After reaching this
yeah,
particular scale,
24,000 crore.
उसके बाद भी you are
Yes.
saying that they are expected to grow or 20% plus.
Yes, so strong
अच्छा.
expansion despite having a high base, and not only growing profitably, because their PAT growth is also expected to be around 20%. So why is this possible? Because there's this thing called NIMs, which is a net interest margin, difference between the rate at which you borrow and the rate at which you lend.
Let-
So if for example 10% पे आपको लोन मिल रही है और आगे आप 15% पे दे रहे हो, तो 5% is your net interest margin. Typically for banks, these are between 3 to 4%, because they are into very low interest rate, because उनके creditors safe होते हैं, तो interest rate low होता है. But Aadhar, as we mentioned, they are economically weaker segment and low income group, so that's why they give loan as a higher rate because of the risk, to compensate for the risk. So that's why their NIMs are higher at 6.7%, significantly higher for the bigger and compared to the bigger banks and NBFCs. And there is this metric which is closely tracked in banks, is return on assets. So whatever assets you have, assets for the bank is the basically the house of the borrower, because until and unless he pay back the loan, that house is the asset of the bank. So the whatever the asset base you have, how much return are you able to generate on that asset? So about 2 to 3% is a very good number for any finance company. Same number for other is 3.9%, close to 4%. So that also say that efficiency wise, company is able to generate more return on their assets. And this is basically a very important metric for NBFC. I think more important than any other, if it's not wrong to say that also. And third is return on equity. How much are you able to pay back to your equity holder? That is also 17%. Again, very good, consistently delivering very good shareholder returns. So these are the numbers in terms of growth and profitability wise. But as I mentioned, लोन देना आसान है, रिकवर करना मुश्किल है. तो फॉर रिकवरी देर आर in banks, NPS is the most used metric.
Metric.
Yeah, and for the company, that gross NPA is around 1.1%. So lending to economically weaker class, very vulnerable class, and having only 1.1% of your portfolio as bad loans, it's pretty commendable job. I mean, of course, they're giving to a housing loan, so there is always going to be a collateral, but still, that's a very good ratio in terms of, because industry wise also it's around 1.2 to 1.5 ranges depending on the company. So one of the lowest in the industry. And this thing called stage 3, basically whatever the loans which are bounced more than 90 plus days, so last 3 month में जितने भी EMI नहीं भरे, वो तुम्हारा पूरा will be come into the stage 3 loan.
तो बेसिकली वो
Stage 3 NPA, sorry.
डिफॉल्टेड मान सकते हैं.
Third stage of the recovery system basically.
अच्छा, ओके,
So
गॉट इट.
30 plus days is stage 1, 30 to 90 stage 2, and 90 plus is, yeah. So there also they have to put a coverage, because अगर आपकी loan you're not expecting to come back, then you have to cover some profit for that particular thing from your profit. So that ratio is around 41%. So that is also higher than the industry, because industry average is around 30%. So company has accidentally tried to be a more conservative, at the same time growth oriented, which is a very fine balance to have in a bank. So I think number wise also tells that the Aadhar is really very doing very strong. And going forward also, as we mentioned, that the along with the growth that the company is expecting, it is expected to be better. But the price part is also very important, because number में दूसरा number is evaluation. That is also very important.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, कि भाई हाँ, there are a lot of competitors in this particular industry.
Mhm.
But now, if you look at this particular, table here, it shows that how is Aadhar stacked up against other housing finance competitors such as Aavas, Home First Finance, and Aptus Value Housing. तो आई थिंक ऑन एन AUM बेसिस आधार का सबसे ज़्यादा AUM है. इट इज़ अ लीडर जो ऑलरेडी एस्टेब्लिश कर दिया अपन ने. सो इट कम्स टू अराउंड 24,000 crores, एंड बाकी सब आर बिलो 20,000 crores. एंड डिस्पाइट हैविंग सच अ ह्यूज AUM, ठीक है, उनका ROE एज ऑफ FY24 हैज बिन एट द इंडस्ट्री टॉप. तो मतलब बेसिकली इट इज अराउंड 18.4%, एंड बाकी सब आर इन द रेंज ऑफ 14% or 16%, and I think एक Aptus है जो is inch higher around 18.7%. And ROA wise also, as we mentioned, it is one of the best in the industry. I think it's around 4%. And so if you look at a 1 year forward price to book basis, so basically we look price to book in this particular sector and not price to earnings. So if you look at price to book metric पे, so it is seen that it is trading at a discount to the peers. So अगर industry average अगर अपन देखते हैं तो it comes to around I think 3 to 3.2%. But Aadhar है अपना I think it is at around 2.2%.
So
So
despite
sorry
you saying
2.2x, yeah.
having the best, biggest company,
Yeah,
leader, uh, above average metrics in terms of everything, like
everything, yes.
profitability, NPA wise and everything, and still trading at the lowest valuation.
Yes.
So any reason behind that?
Yeah, so I was just getting to that. Yeah. So the only reason behind this is the private equity overhang, or koi reason nahi. There is
Hmm,
fundamentally nothing wrong in the company. So
correct.
basically, what is happening is Blackstone, owns around 75.7% to be precise of this particular company. And
Hmm,
usually, private equity firms अगर आते हैं, तो as everybody knows, industry practice, I think they look at a time period of around 5 to 10 years because they
hmm.
always try to exit. क्योंकि हाँ भाई उन्होंने आए कंपनी को बनाया
टर्न
एफिशिएंट किया
अराउंड किया
टर्न
और
अराउंड
एग्जिट
किया और
होराइजन
एग्जिट
लेके ही आते हैं वो.
हाँ
ओके, करेक्ट.
एंड knowing that they entered in 2018 so
Hmm,
already they are near that period so there is a fear that there might be a
of
stake sale
course.
और
Hmm.
75.7% अगेन एक वो भी एंगल आ जाता है कि आफ्टर गेटिंग लिस्टेड यू ओनली हैव 3 years फॉर अ कंपनी कि प्रमोटर का होल्डिंग 75% पे आ जाना चाहिए
और
उससे
उसके
नीचे
नीचे,
होना
या
चाहिए
ओके.
एंड दे आर ऑलरेडी एट सेवेंटी फाइव पॉइंट
आई थिंक द
सेवन
कंपनी
परसेंट
आईपीओ लास्ट ईयर ओनली.
लास्ट ईयर
ओके.
तो फिर वो ये इश्यूज इसके वजह से देर
Hmm.
इज फियर इन द
So
इन्वेस्टर्स कि
basically,
भाई
there is a supply overhang
हाँ
on the other stocks. So that's why people might not be. But I think that also, if comes, let's say tomorrow, if Blackstone decides to sell, but the business part stays as it
yeah,
is,
yeah, that is
right?
what I'm
So
saying.
that's the.
Fundamentally, there is
Hmm,
nothing wrong in this company as of now. There is
hmm,
only this supply overhang का issue
hmm. And as
जिसके
you
वजह
mentioned,
से
it's
हाँ
more 75% is like three-fourth of your
या
company. So that's why also it's very significant.
दैट इज वाई दे
Hmm,
आर स्कैर्ड कि अगर चल
hmm.
ब्लैकस्टोन निकला कोई दूसरा पीई फर्म आके ना ले ले और फिर वो चेंज इन मैनेजमेंट हो गया
Hmm.
इफ
Then
बाई
then
चांस
after that,
हाँ
Aadhar might not be as efficient as it right
या
now.
दैट और
No one knows,
ज्यादा भी
right?
हो सकता है
Yeah.
बट हाँ पॉसिबिलिटी वो भी है कि कम
Hmm.
भी रहे तो हाँ
Correct.
ये इश्यूज की वजह से इट
Hmm.
इज ट्रेडिंग एट अ डिस्काउंट बट
Hmm.
इट लुक्स अट्रैक्टिव ऑल्सो कंसिडरिंग एज यू मेंशन कि भाई
Hmm.
प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी भी रेवेन्यू भी सब कुछ 20% प्लस ग्रो करने वाला है ओवर द नेक्स्ट
Hmm.
3 years अप टिल FY 27 तो
High
मतलब
high growth
हाँ
sector में है and leader है basically.
लीडर है सो या
Hmm.
आई थिंक ये है इसके वैल्यूएशंस का
Hmm.
बट
उसके
देन
अलावा भी I think there are some opportunities and threats for the
हाँ
company.
वही
First, I think one as you mentioned, the government push. That's a very industry-wide tailwind that the company is having, and I think companies also very tax heavy basically. Though that is also their digital lending model also can improve going forward, and the company is in place to expanding their branch network. So for banks and NBFC is pretty clear. More branches equal more market share and equals more growth. So that's a pretty straightforward things. And there are also some threats. One is P
एक
exit.
तो पी एग्जिट हो गया एंड
Yeah.
देन सेकंड अगेन कंपटीशन तो रहेगा
Yes,
ही
because as the industry itself is poised to grow by 20%. So sooner or later, it will be a very big part of the overall credit market. So
एंड
there bigger
अगर
player
बड़ी
also might
फर्म्स
enter.
जैसे HDFC हो गया कोटक का मतलब ऑब्वियसली दे स्टिल लेंड बट अगर वो
Hmm.
थोड़े इसमें और अग्रेसिव हो गए
Hmm.
दे आर बाउंड टू कैप्चर सर्टेन मार्केट शेयर फ्रॉम दीज
Hmm.
पर्टिकुलर कंपनीज
Even not the bigger banks, even the newer players also can
हाँ
emerge. So it's a so as just Aadhar according to uh, sorry as said Aadhar, there are so many players. Aptus Home First, so these are all very regional players. They started from some one geography. Now they are at a national level. So the competition from them also, and maybe newer player also, that also can be a risk. And another one is pretty interesting because I think others 80% of the borrowing because they also have to borrow from banks and NBFCs to lend further. So that 80% of borrowing is on a floating rate base. So as the market rate change, basically your repo rate. So that accordingly their lending rate also change and their borrowing rate also change. So now we are into the rate cut cycle, let's say. But if tomorrow, no one knows the future, right? So economy wise anything
अगर हाइक्स
happens,
चालू हो गए
yeah,
तो
तो rate hikes के case में, then it will be not good for other. Either they have to quickly pass on the rate hikes to their customer and charging higher interest rate, and if industry does not follow this, then it means that the others might face some trouble in that. They may have to observe that particular rate hike. So that might be another like a small
प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी पे
risk.
प्रेशर पड़ सकता है इन
Correct,
द फ्यूचर.
correct. So that is one thing. But again, these are the parts of businesses and all. Because I think we are here just to tell you about the positives and negatives and the dynamics of the business, because this is by no means
Yeah.
investment advice. This is just for an education and entertainment purposes, and you should consult your financial advisor before investing. So I think with that disclosure, we have come to the end of the podcast. And to conclude shortly, from a small housing finance company back in 1980s something to now India's largest affordable housing finance company, Aadhar has definitely came a very long way, and it's been an interesting journey. And the last leg of that journey being that the entry of a Blackstone. That might be a last leg or might be a new leg. No one knows, but it's definitely a company to keep a watch,
Watch on.
especially in times which is very uncertain right now in terms of markets. So these are the interesting business that one should keep look on. Where markets fall, it can also give you more opportunities, of
If
course.
you think this is cheap, yeah.
Yeah, if you have that particular bucket list kind of a stocks. And I think we what we do in podcast is also try to find such stocks, so that whenever market falls because of the macro reason, you might find a good opportunity. So I think with that, that's a wrap. And we also provide a very good portfolio review services.
Yes,
So if you
guys.
have a portfolio which might not be performing as per your expectation or might be underperforming to the broader market, you can give it to us, and our professional will review it and will give you some very good feedback to improve it. So to avail that service, click the link in the description below. And until the next time, like, share, subscribe, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.
Bye, guys.